those of you who got an invite, welcome to Nerd Prom.
No matter where in the world you are, we're all Nerds International. With the hyphen.
The Murder Hobo Show presents the Savage Rifter Podcast.
Oh, where are we?
Oh my god, there's a robot!
What?
It's
Run away!
running! I don't know what's happening.
Oh, it's like we're falling through rips in the time-space continuum.
Look out, we're in the middle of water!
There's only one way through this. Are you with me?
Yeah.
We must fight.
The Savage Rifter Podcast.
Welcome to the Savage Rifter Show, Episode 4. I am one of your hosts, Gary, the Murder Hobo, and I am here with none other than world-renowned and infamous Riffs superstar Victor Diaz of the Savage Riffs G+ community fame.
Ladies and gentlemen, the game is on tonight. Thank you so much, Gary, for the wonderful introduction and doing all the hard work of the editing. We are here. This is the Savage Rifter, Victor Diaz, and you guys know where to find me, the Riffs G+ community.
We break down Savage Riffs piece by piece so that Victor can teach me and you, the listener, how to play, enjoy, and understand riffs. What are we doing tonight, Victor?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, so as usual, we've been going over the Savage Riffs Tommorow Legion Players Guide. We've been talking about the character creation section, and we've been zeroing in lately on the Lords of War. We're just going it right in order. So those of you who are following along, kids, you can pick up your book and turn to page 18, and we're going to go right into the Cyber Knight tonight.
Fantastic. Over the next few episodes, we are going to be discussing this guide chapter by chapter. There's a lot of stuff that we got to get into, we got to dig into, we got to look at, and that's why I have Victor here, because I know nothing. I'm the looks of this operation.
You're just using me, Gary. I know I'm beautiful, but you're just using me.
All right, fantastic. I can't wait to dive into the specifics of this iconic framework. Let's do it.
Hey there, Mr. Suit-wearing guy. Yes, that's me. Don't I know you from someplace before? Yeah, I do know you. What's new with you, man?
Well, I suppose I could tell you what's new.
From the Rifts.
So, what's new this week in the Rifts community? Savage World's GM podcast, Dustin Smith, wrote in. They were doing their podcast, and I guess the topic of Savage Rifts came up a little bit more than usual, so he decided to post it over there. I'll put a link in the show notes so you can check it out. The Savage World's GM podcast is like the place to go to if you want to know how Savage Worlds works and get some great tips, some great hints, and some great ideas on the game mechanics.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of the Savage Worlds GM podcast that I've taken a look over the years and then gone back and rewound and laughed at some of the funny jokes and some of the really great insights between all those guys. It's really funny that they brought up Savage Riffs because I know there's a couple of them that don't really like the flavor. They don't really like the taste of Savage Riffs and
What you talking about, mister?
what it is and how it plays. But that's okay because that's what role-playing games are all about. You get to play what you like to play. But they really, when they were talking about it in the podcast, I did take a listen to it, and it's just funny how they dropped it in there and it kept coming back like, some really bad onions that you had for dinner. It just keeps coming back every once in a while to kind of remind you that it's still there, and they were really talking about it. So I look forward to seeing anything that they can put up or any advice that they give. There is some great advice for you GMs who are struggling with learning encounters or powers or certain specific rules in there. Go back and look at the GM podcasts all on YouTube, and they'll really give you some really good ideas on how to manage them, some different options on just genres and just in general the Savage Riffs rulebook. Just basic ideas that are just really key to learning the whole game, because Savage Worlds doesn't really start to gain traction in your game until you really start using all the rules as a whole.
Yes.
You can learn a lot from those guys.
Yes, absolutely. Savage Worlds gets better. The more you know the rules and the more you use the rules, I think the better that it gets. It's funny that you compared Savage Riffs in the podcast to onions, because I was thinking it was more like herpes. You think you got rid of them, but they just keep coming back.
Just keep taking your pills, Gary. Just keep taking your pills. It'll be fine.
No, I don't have them. We don't want all the ladies listening to this podcast. Just so you know.
Just like the last time when you said you were going to go and run around naked and get Kevin Simbita's Sharpies out and get him to sign your chest there.
Exactly. What else we got? What's this Mindalar Mind Slug thing that I saw?
Yeah, C.A. Helmling managed to put together a conversion of the Mindalar Mind Slug. And you know what, C.A.? I really like the D10 Spirits, D10 Smarts, really low agility because this is a Mind Slug. It can be a big old nasty baseball bat sized slug, or it can be 20 feet long, 10,000 pounds. It's like a size 5 creature. So it's really going to be an ugly and disgusting little thing, but the stats look just about right. The D12 plus 3 strength might be a little much because you're pushing closer to Glitter Boy super mega damage capacity strength there. But other than that, everything seems to be right. So for those of you who don't know, the Mindalar is an alien DB, a dimensional being, and it is like a mind slug. It has this mind control saliva or venom. So when it bites into you, and by the way, it is a mega damage bite with a huge armor piercing. When it bites into you, the victim falls under the Mindalar's mind control. It's kind of like when they use the puppet power, but it's permanent. You have to make a test of a psychic roll or you become its slave. And the Mindalar can experience anything the slaves do, and it can even speak through them. So, you got this giant slug that's pretty much mind controlling and doing the Pod People movie all over again, but in Savage Rifts. And it's a great way to introduce a DB enemy for those of you guys that are looking for something a little weird, a little different. This one's pretty cool. It kind of gives me the willies because I know how it has enslaves people. So it can really drive the characters crazy because they don't know what's going on. And a lot of the times they get family, they get friends, they get people that they know. So now they don't want to fight them, they don't want to hurt them, they don't want to kill them, but they've definitely got to save them from this big old dimensional being in this beast. It can regenerate. It's an equal opportunity slaver. I love that statement there in the ability CA. That's awesome. So he puts in under equal opportunity slaver. It says, while the Mindalar cannot speak except through a slave, they automatically read and understand all languages. This is just as well as it has no eyes, ears, or olfactory organs. So it can't be blinded, deafened, or affected by gas or pheromone powers. It detects its world through the senses of its slaves and an arcane sense and a form of echolocation. So really unique abilities and really unique defenses that you really need to play that up as a GM if you're playing this. But I love it already. To top it all off, he has some great psychic abilities, 50 ISP, and a D12 psychic skill. Man, that'll take any kind of super psyker on right there. And he's got a slew of powers. It looks like almost the entire power list is available to this dimensional being, but it's a really great conversion. I'd kind of be a little wary on the stats on how high they are, but considering it's a slug, it's got no real, like grass, arms, legs. It's mostly mental powers. It can't see, it can't hear, it can't smell. So it's kind of a nice little balance there. But I like the whole trick. The whole thing sounds really creepy.
It's just like a giant turd. You can't see, can't do anything unless it gets its teeth
spit on you and
into
take your mind over. That's all.
Yeah, that's all right. So, if you ever do come across one of these things, could you take it out with salt?
Only you would try that, right? You would put the butter on it, get the fork out, and see if it'll taste any good.
Well, yeah, frog's legs. Is there a giant frog alien DB race that we can get into?
I can just see the wheels in your head are turning, and I'm looking at frog legs over a spit the size of a car.
That's right. I don't see any weaknesses on this thing. I'm just wondering if maybe we could put weakness salt on this. And
well, one of its big weaknesses is going to be its agility. I mean, it can't move very fast. It can't dodge or roll out of the way. So like area area explosion, small blast template, medium blast template, or anything like that, it's going to be rolling a D4, and if you decide to make it a wild card, it's going to get a D6 to be able to dodge out of that. So clearly, that's going to be it's going to be pretty much helpless to anything that it takes on. It does have a real high vitality, and it can regenerate, fast regeneration. And well, it's not a true mega damage creature. Its mollusk-like body can take massive damage, adding +5 to its overall toughness and giving it the hardy and brawny edges. So it makes it, really tough and really hard to ultimately kill. But it has a toughness of 19. Like I said, some of those stats are kind of high. I'm a little wary to get them that high, and the toughness being that high. But if it can't move, it's got to be, it's got to be a tank. It's got to sit there and take some hits and takes a licking and keeps on ticking, kind of thing.
It's a slug. It's funny that you can play a slug in Rifts.
Sure, you could make this into a OCC or an RCC, transform it into an iconic framework and use it to mind control a bunch of people, or maybe one or two people, or as you gain ranks or levels, you can do more characters. Very similar to what you did with what we were talking about last week with the Crazy. Play a Mindalar, and maybe he's not evil necessarily, or maybe he captures the evil guys and uses them against them, or on their own people. It's your game. Play it however you want to. One of the great things about Rifts, it's literally everything in the kitchen sink. So throw it in there and mix it around. What's the worst that can happen? Oh, he died next week, and we'll play a new character the following after.
A crazy mind slug. I like that.
Yeah, it's all kind of craziness. It is Rifts after all.
There was one other conversion that somebody had done as well. Marcos Melendez, and in the OCC/RCC conversion section, put something together.
Yeah, he was talking about a framework of a Nega Psychic. Now, I'm looking at the descriptions as we go through these guys, so bear with me if I pause a minute or I have to read through this, but he's looking at heroes' journeys. Now, the Nega Psychic, he's going to make it a character class. He's building it up as an iconic framework right out of the box. So this one, I'll read you the theme. It says, a curious mutation of psionic power. The Nega Psychic is closed off to much of the world, as opposed to the traditional Psychic, who is open to all the currents and eddies of the supernatural. So the Nega Psychic is granted an extreme protection from the supernatural. They have a strange ability to disrupt magic, which makes them highly sought after by many clandestine organizations, coalition, and feared by those in the mystic world. So they're pretty much the opposite of magicians and psionics. He's talking about 5 roles on the hero's journey, 3 from the training psionics experience and wisdom tables, and then 2 from any table except magic and mysticism and enchanted items and cybernetics. They get their own unique arcane background called a Nega Psionic. He starts with a D8 in psionics, 20 ISP, and 3 powers. Counter magic is an ability he's given them right off the bat. So the Nega Psychic begins play with a special version of the Dispel power, and it can only be used against magic. The Nega Psychic does not receive a penalty to attempt to dispel a different power source.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, that is pretty neat. I'm trying to think of how that would work, and I can't see any real major issues with that one. Yeah, I mean, pretty much you're just giving him an automatic power called Dispel, and it can only be used against magic, which is kind of cool. And he has a few psionic abilities, so that gives him some fighting powers. It goes on to say the Nega Psychic is immune to mind reading, control, possession, aura reading, remote viewing, and illusions. Yeah, and that's pretty typical of what was in the Rifts character. Slow regeneration, so he can regenerate. He gets a natural healing roll once a day. That's nothing out of the ordinary. Major psionic, so that's cool because it gives him the edge to make him get all the powers for the Mega Powers list. And then a Nega Psi Field, +1 to trait rolls and armor versus psionics. So anytime you use a psionic power against him, he's going to get a +4 to either the trait roll, or he's going to get a +4 to his armor.
Slow regeneration. The Nega Psychic gets a natural healing roll once a day. Is Savage Rifts just like regular Rifts where you get a natural healing roll like every 5 days?
I don't remember the rules right off the top of my head for the Savage Rifts, for the Savage Worlds rulebook for healing. A lot of the times they don't survive long enough to get the rolls. So
I'll look it up while you keep talking about this thing, and then we'll see what, because I was just curious, the natural healing roll once a day. I'm pretty sure it's 5 days.
Yeah, I want to say it is a couple of days. I'm just not sure the duration. So while you look that up, we're going to talk a little bit about psychic complications. The Nega Psychic is wanted. Nega Psychics are hated and feared both by the Coalition and the Federation of Magic. Nega Psychics show up as dead spots to creatures that can perceive auras or sense psychic powers. Oh, that would be cool if you had a psychic that could see the aura of people, and then he shows up like a black hole, just all dark and can't see past him. That would be kind of cool. Kind of cool description there for the character. Another complication is a quirk. All Nega Psychics have a natural distrust of magic and the supernatural. Sure, that would make sense. And no cybernetics, obviously, because it screws up with his ability. And then starting gear, he's recommending everyone get the same as a Glitter Boy. I'm sure you don't mean for them to have a Glitter Boy armor, but the same starting equipment, starting gear that you get for that character class. So yeah, all in all, I really like the way he's put it together. It doesn't seem to be anything out of the ordinary, and it really keeps the flavor of the original Nega Psychic.
Natural healing every 5 days.
Yeah, it is every 5 days. That's cool. So that would make sense. That's why it's slow regeneration, because I've seen that in other iconic frameworks also.
Yeah, so in Rifts, I'm assuming it's going to be the same as the core rulebook then, every 5 days, unless you have something cool like this with the slow regen, you get it every day?
Correct, and then I believe there's fast regeneration, and that lets you get it like every hour.
What?
Yeah, fast regeneration is pretty cool. There's not a lot of, that I can remember, there's not a lot of monsters or characters that get that right off the bat. I think the Juicer might have something like that.
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised. Those crackheads probably don't have any problem.
No, they don't stay hurt for very long. Yeah, they take a licking and keep on ticking. Literally, they're like the crazy. That's awesome. I really like that character class. Thanks for showing us that, man. That's a pretty good one.
Yeah,
I might have to put that in my back pocket sometime.
One of the slick things about the Google Plus community is that people make these things, these different frameworks and stuff like that.
Yeah, it saves me a lot of work. That's for sure. Now, you guys are awesome. I mean, Gary has a good point. Big shout out to all the Google Plus community. You know how you guys know how we do it. This is our 5th episode. I'm starting to lose count here, Gary. But as always, we do this for the community and by the community. You guys are the ones that write this stuff up, and we read through all the Google Plus pages. We look at all your guys' conversions, and we talk about them as often as I can. And literally every day, I'm adding someone new to the membership. We're up to 506 members, people. So I really appreciate you guys getting in there. Spread the word, pass that around, send some friends some emails, tell your gaming group, hey, if you guys are interested, you want to look at this, come take a look at the Google Plus group. And don't tell them it's Victor's Google Plus group or it's your Google Plus group as much as it is mine, as much as it's Gary's, and anybody else who really likes to play into the Savage Rifts games. That's not the only game I like to play. I grew up playing Dungeons and Dragons just like everyone else. I like fantasy just as much as Rifts. I just happened to have gotten this started and people started following along. So I really appreciate everyone's help, everyone's support, lots of your feedback. Timothy, of course, you're still keeping me in check, telling me what I should and should not be doing. Absolutely love it. But please, everyone else, post anything that you think is worthy or anything that you have trouble with, or if you have any questions, all you GMs out there, like I said, there's been a lot of questions lately on encounters and tactics and different things to do. So post them up there. We'll talk about it. You never know. Might make it on the show.
Excellent stuff. Let's head over to the Legionnaires' field reports.
Incoming reports mail.
All right, the Legionnaires Field Reports. You guys can reach us at murderhoboshow@gmail.com, or you can get us on Twitter if you can keep it up under 140 characters at Murder Hobo Show, or, of course, at the Google Plus page, Murder Hobo Show under the Nerds International banner. Or you can always reach out to me, Victor Diaz, directly at the Google Plus Savage Rifts page, where the community is absolutely very, very active.
We like to read over your mails and see what you're saying about us. And some of the things that we have been mentioned in the last little while, it's kind of cool, like when you put out a podcast like this and then people just respond with silly things. Fortunately, we don't really have anything this week that basically says that we kind of botched it up, because we have people listening and watching us, like Mike Morrison, the Ley Line Wizard, and now the Burner. I'm glad that
it's absolutely awesome. I mean, we have people listening, and that's great. I appreciate everyone coming on. It's not like we're making any money doing this or anything. We're just simply here for you guys to have another conversation about this great game. But Mike Morrison talks about, and I love his first comment. I'm sure you were going there. First, Ley Line Wizard, and as you know, it should be Ley Line Walker. But I like Ley Line Wizard, so I've been using it. And then he goes, and now burner, tisk, tisk, tisk. And by burner, let me explain myself. By burner, I meant burster, not burner, the psychic burster. But another person who was new at the table, not too long ago, we were playing a game. He wanted to play a burster, pyrokinetic. And he misspoke and he said burner. We kind of chuckled, and I didn't want to put him on the spot because he was a new player, new to role-playing games, and new to Savage Rifts. Yes, I know. He dove into the deep end. And he just said burner, and we kept going with it, and I've been using it ever since, and it's become a part of my vernacular now. So now we have Ley Line Wizard and we have burner. I hope you like it, Mike. Mike Morrison is one of the guys that's pretty live and a lot full of a lot of commentary there on the G Plus community. A lot of you guys know him already, but he's been giving me a lot of fun stuff and jabbing me every chance he gets. So I appreciate that, Mike. It's great to have you on there. He also goes on to say he loved the Ley Line Wizard remix too.
Yeah. Yeah, just wait. There might be a burner remix coming out sometime in the near future.
No. I think you started something, Mike, there. I think you started something, Gary, with him. That's awesome. Yeah, and as usual, in the very next, chiming right in, Timothy Carpenter. He goes on to say, jerk number 1 reporting in with a salute. So we were kind of jabbing him last week for talking about the crazies and all the different stuff and the rules that we got wrong from the previous episode and all the stuff that we were talking about for strain and combat cyborgs, which is our previous topic, and what the max strain is. And he goes on to in a pretty in-depth correction. And I appreciate that very much, Timothy, because as you guys know, we are all human. We may all put our pants on the same, but there's different stuff upstairs. So we kind of have to figure it all out as we go along. But I appreciate all of the feedback, Timothy, and you are now the official fact checker for the podcast. So I expect an in-depth report next week. And just post it on the Google Plus page. I'm sure everybody enjoys reading through it and kind of going through the systems and going through the math in their brains. It helps to have someone who's so well-read when it comes to the rules because, I can't remember them all.
I love rules lawyers because just like we were talking about a few minutes ago, the better or the more that you understand the rules and Savage Worlds and how they work, the better your game can be. If you're quick on your feet with the rules and stuff like that, it pulls away from, just wait a second, let me look that rule up, and it just keeps the flow going and stuff. Plus, it also helps you do cool things like there's an actual play that Manuel Sams did. That's really good, where they go on to they're on this icy planet. He takes this canister that's like an energy cell and he throws it into this snowy blizzard, and then from the back of this, I'm assuming it's like a snowmobile, but it like levitates and stuff. And he's on this thing and he shoots this thing to blow up these kind of like ice manta rays. And they were talking about the negatives that they were applying, and in my head I'm like, limited vision from the blizzard. Unstable platform. You're
already applying Savage Worlds rules to it, aren't you?
Right? Tiny target. There's a -8. And they discuss it on the Twats, and Harrison played it like I play it. I don't care what the negatives is. I want to try it because that's the cool stuff.
Just roll the dice. Let's see what happens.
That's my kudos to the rules lawyers. Bring it on, because when you start getting, some people are like, oh yeah, it's just a target number 4, but really it's not. You start adding these modifiers on. You really got a roll that you got to make there.
Yes. Now you're hoping for an exploding dice because you're like, I got 2d6. How am I going to get a 12? And I don't add these together. Yeah, totally understand. So thanks a lot, Timothy. We appreciate it. We look forward to your analysis after you hear this podcast.
Yep. Thanks, jerk number 1.
That's your official nickname.
Yeah, Mike Morrison says, I'll get in line after Timothy. So Mike Morrison
is now
number
2 right there.
That's right. Right down to John Nieper reporting in, jerk number 3.
Yeah, he's talking about Leyline Wizard that he absolutely loves how I throw that in there. Thanks so much, John. I appreciate you putting in your comments. I see that you think the podcast is, quote, super fun. We think it's super fun too, so I'm glad you're on this journey with us. He says I put that thought into the NEMA archive for you. Oh, he had a thought about my boomers, the NEMA archive boomers document that I was putting out there, and he put another idea in there. Basically, it's creating background edges to turn the base glitter boy into whatever variation you were wanting to play. Yeah, John, I saw that in that particular thread. I haven't had a chance to take a look at what you were proposing, but we'll take a look at it and see what it is. You never know. Maybe next time we'll throw it in there after I have a little bit of sleep and a little bit of caffeine, and so I can kind of pay attention to what you're writing in there, because I remember it's a pretty in-depth report in there. So I appreciate that. Next up is Matt Williams. In the lore, if you want to put top of the line mom tech, you need to go to Mindworks in what used to be Poland. Yeah, the Mindworks, I believe, are the ones who came up with the mom technology to be able to make crazies. They're the ones that invented that mind over matter technology, if I'm not mistaken. Thanks for that, Matt. That's pretty good. Look for the Angel of Death, Rift Sourcebook number 3, Mindworks. Yeah, so, I remember that. I remember that. I'm going to have to go take a look at that. That might be one of the side quests that we do here on the podcast. Go take a look at that soon. I really like the Mindworks.
Yeah, this is what I was asking you about last week when it came down to, I don't know if it was the mom tech or something like that, but this is what I was getting at. I was wondering if there was a source book that basically said if you go to South America or something like that, you can find, this is where you go to find the crazy tech or something like that. But, how cool would it be just to head down there and just do some cool stuff in the Mindworks and find some sweet new attachments for your person?
Yeah, right off the bat, I'm looking at the book right now. you take a look at it, and if you look on page 7, it starts with Mom Technology. The origins of MindWorks goes back to the time before the Great Cataclysm, during humankind's technological golden age and man's quest for human augmentation. And there was a bunch of companies, whatnot, that tried to, focus on robotics, cybernetics, weapon technologies. Others turned their attention to the nanotech, the medicine, the juicer augmentation, genetic engineering, and those other ones. Well, it was a German-based company known as MindWorks that was building up robotics and cybernetics. They actually got involved into the mind over matter technology. They called it a Cytronics. It was a radical new science, and they invented the Mama's Boys. They invented the MOM technology. It was a little tiny upstart company, and with some really great discoveries, and then it all went to pot when the world fell apart and all the rifts and ley lines came back into the world. But yeah, that's a great read. Now that I'm looking through it, I remember a lot of the good pictures, and yeah, the Angel of Death is in there. You've got to check her out. She's a good threat to throw in against your players. You can always use her as a good NPC or as a good wild card in there. And she's fully statted out in there. You know what? Now that I think about it, there's the Angel of Death, there's the Angel of Vengeance, and there's a couple of other good NPCs. I may have to convert some of these and put them into the Savage Rifts game. So thanks a lot for that, you guys. That'll be awesome. Thanks for letting me know about that. Ringing my bell, Matt.
Come out of the rabbit hole. Come back to me, Victor.
I got lost, guys. I got lost. No, thanks a lot, Matt. Appreciate you reminding me about that. I think I might have to take a couple of those angels and put them in there. That's pretty cool.
Eric Buchanan writes, I like the fact that you spend an entire episode on one iconic character class. I like that as well, because I'm really trying to learn refs. I really want to get into this, and I really want to play it. MindWorks, that one word alone, this going to a MindWorks factory, just spawned so many fantastic ideas in my brain. I feel like I'm going to explode. I'm a little on the OCD side, so take that into consideration. When you cover Cyberknights, don't forget to talk about how damn powerful their swords are. The guy playing on my game does as much damage as a boom gun minus all the AP. Really? With a sword? Excited to look at that.
We'll talk about that in a minute. Yeah, that's really great stuff, Eric. You do have to be careful with the Cyberknights because they are pretty powerful. But I got some things up my sleeve I think you'll like to hear in just a little bit.
Excellent sauce. And lastly, Sean Masters. Thanks for the for the little bit of a shout out there. He says, Gary, another great show. Victor, you stink. Wow, that's actually not very nice.
Mm-hmm. And there's jerk number 3. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Sean, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I believe, does Sean have his own podcast, correct?
Yes, I think so. We're not going to talk about it, though.
Yeah, but thanks so much, Sean. I appreciate you listening to it. I'm glad you like it. We do it just for you, Sean. There you go.
Coolness. All right. Where are we going to from here? We're in the Legionnaires field reports, and we got to head over to the Nexus points. Let's get into the Cyberknight. It's time to talk about this this iconic framework and see what you can teach me about the Cyberknight.
Who are you? We are the knights who say... No, not the knights who say the same. Who are we? We are the keepers of the sacred word.
Nexus points.
All right, so like I said earlier, Tommorow Legion's Player's Guide, page 18, top of the page says Cyberknight. They are the good old-fashioned Knights of the Round Table kind of, Holy Knight, Crusader, Paladins of the Savage Rifts games, but they're mostly psionic-based characters, really. There's a lot of different things that you can do with a Cyberknight.
Cyberknight Slug, what do you think of that?
That's scary.
The look on your face is like...
That is scary. I can just see the floating cybernetic sword right next to him because he's got no arms floating next to him and, attacking folks. That would be interesting. But like I said, this is Rifts. It can happen. So going right into it, it starts out with the hero's journey. It talks about 5 roles that they get. It's pretty typical of all the iconic frameworks. You get 3 roles for your education, experience, and wisdom, psionics, and training. And then you get 2 roles on any table except cybernetics and magic and mysticism. So lots of fun stuff that you can do right there with that. Just try that sometime. Go through those journey rolls and just make a bunch of rolls on those tables, guys, and check them out. There's a whole bunch of fun stuff that you can pick from there. An example is like experience and wisdom. If you roll a 7, you get a strange tingling in the back of your neck when things are about to get all pear-shaped. You see enough trouble to know when it's coming. Your character has the danger sense edge. So being a Cyberknight and picking that up, that would be awesome. Going into it a little bit more, they start talking about the history of honor and glory. You start talking about what Cyberknights are, the code of honor that they adhere to. There are 7 parts to their code of what they call the code of chivalry. It's to live, fair play, nobility, valor, honor, courtesy, and loyalty. And they've done a pretty good job of summarizing it here in the rulebook. Fairness, nobility, valor, honor, courtesy, loyalty. Those are the major items that they go through. And a good example of that chivalry is, for example, nobility. One of the things that it talks about in the Ultimate Rifts Guide is administer justice, administer mercy, protect the innocent, and respect women. So that's all part of the nobility clause. That's what a lot of characters or a lot of players, when they're playing this character, they're like, well, what can I do? Well, what can I do? And well, I don't want to break my code, because there are consequences to breaking the code of chivalry, the code of honor that they're all taught to follow when they're trained and when they become Cyberknights.
While you were talking and doing your thing there, I kind of went off in La La Land, and I was just imagining the Cyberknight slug with all its armor and stuff rolling down a hill. You had mentioned something about it rolling, and I'm like, if it was a slug and it was rolling down a hill, it would roll forever because it doesn't have arms to stop itself. and then I kind of came back when you were talking about something else, and then I just was like, oh.
You're like, oh, I'm doing a show. I got to pay attention here.
Slugs rolling down a hill with no arms, can't stop itself.
Awesome.
Is what I was
look
thinking.
Forward to seeing that character class poster, that character sheet posted soon. That'll be awesome to see that Cyberknight slug, the Mind Slug. No, what I was talking is about that Cyberknights. Most of the Cyberknights are honored and respected all throughout, the coalition states, through a lot of North America. Everyone across the planet knows that one of humanity's greatest examples of good is a Cyberknight. So when you play that, you kind of have that pressure, like, oh, the little girl's getting dragged away by the beast. Oh, we're not going to save it. Let him save herself. And the Cyberknight's the first one to say, I can't let that happen. My character gets up and starts running across the street, and then everyone starts chasing him because they're, they have to help protect him and help do what he needs to do. So it's a really great way to be able to play out your character and to get some background on who you are, what you believe in, and how you can impact the world around you as a Cyberknight, because everybody looks up to them. It's really, really awesome the way they do that, because everywhere that you go, if you see a Cyberknight, people are automatically start coming up to him, hey, I need your help, or someone did this to me, or someone did that to me. And going back to one of the 7 points of chivalry, you need to administer justice, administer mercy, and protect the innocent. And those are some of the major points that you need to be able to follow, because if you don't, well, there are consequences to that. There's what they call minor offenses and major offenses. I believe it's offenses is what they call them. And if you start committing too many of those, you start to lose your powers. So like, say you kill an innocent, whether it's on purpose or it's not on purpose, that's considered, a big no-no. So your cyber armor turns off. Some of your psychic powers may not work. Some of the stuff starts working at a penalty. And if you committed a second major offense, or transgression is what it's called, it could be that you lose your powers permanently and you become an NPC under the control of the GM as a fallen Cyberknight. And maybe that's what your whole party has to come back to and be able to chase down. So there are consequences to being a knight. It's not all just, fun and glitz and glory all the time.
These are your typical paladins, is what I'm sort of getting out of this. Your typical Dungeons and Dragons paladins, right? I was trying to sort of understand how, like, in the Rifts universe, these things, like, how are your powers getting shut off and all this other stuff. But I'm reading something here that says when a squire ascends to knighthood, he undergoes a combination ritual and medical process that embeds a specialized form of semi-organic nanotech into his body. Now, this is the nanotech that sort of holds your holy power or something along those lines, and it knows when you screw up, and that's how your powers get shut off?
That's a good example of one way to describe it. Yeah. So the ritual that they go through, they embed these nanites into them. And this is where they get the cyber part of Cyberknight. The nanites, after you become, as soon as you become inducted into the Cyberknights, you go through this medical process, and the nanites learn to create a synthetic steel skin over your body. So you kind of look like Colossus from X-Men.
Oh, yeah, it does say that here, right? In addition to creating an organic
as you gain
metal
more
shell.
and more levels, or as you get stronger and stronger, the nanites not only give you the second skin, but they start building up plates and, different shoulder plates and other protections and gauntlets. And, so if you see a full-blown Cyber Knight and his armor's all buffed out, he's going to be a really high-level model. At least that's how I remember we used to play it. The higher in level that you are, the more psychic power you have, the more powerful your cybernetics are, and that means your armor also grows with it. But yeah, that's a good analyzation of how the nanites can kind of control or manipulate your ability to use your powers based off of how you act, based off of your actions and how you're treating others.
I was just wondering about this. It talks about the Dark Ages, and then it says that there's some human knight from another world whose name is Lord Coke.
Yeah, Lord Coke was supposedly the story or the legends say that Lord Coke was the first original Cyber Knight, and he was from another dimension. Where there are humans. Humans proliferate throughout all dimensions. And when he showed up in Rift's Earth, they estimate that was around 18 years after they started counting the post-apocalypse years. Sometime around that time is when Lord Coke appeared, and he started creating all the Cyber Knights. There's legends and there's stories in some of the books that talk about it's kind of questionable on whether he brought the nanotechnology from his world and he transplanted it from himself into the next Cyber Knight, and that's how it went along, or if that got, if the stories got kind of twisted and maybe he discovered that nanite technology here on Earth. They're not sure. There's a lot of variations on that theme, but at the end of the day, that's how all the Cyber Knights started. Lord Coke was supposedly the first Cyber Knight. And you were right, the Dark Ages were about 80 years before or after the end of the world, when all the ley lines came and, nuclear war and proliferation all over the planet, that millions of people were killed all in a matter of a few weeks. And after that, it was just the aftermath. There was nothing. The world was just a mess, and humanity managed to crawl out of that.
Oh, I like that the timeline is PA, post-apocalyptic.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's what they call it. It's supposed to be, I think, the year 2389, if I'm not mistaken. I could be off on that count. So, Timothy, take a look at that and let us know next week.
Yeah, thanks, jerk number, whatever you are. What's the cyber about? Well, that's sort of what we were going into there, right? That's where they get their powers
that's exactly
from and
what
stuff
we're talking
like
about.
that. Which is pretty neat. I like that they explain it, because there doesn't seem to be, or at least we haven't come across it in the previous iconic frameworks where there's gods or any of that kind of stuff. I know there's magic and there's other kind of sort of weird things and whatnot. I'm sure we'll get to a priest-like character at some point in this book, but I like that they explain that it comes from another. This is the cool part about Rifts. Like, this just makes it. We were talking about the believability. You need to have that believability. Like, when I sat here and I first thought about it, and I'm like, oh yeah, Cyber Knights out doing their business and stuff. Nobody knows if they kill the innocents and then their power shut off. Well, in D&D, if it's a god is watching you and that's where your power comes from, makes perfect sense that he would know what was happening. So I was like, how are these ones if they're not associated with a higher being? And now they've explained it with this weird guy showing up with these like organic nanotech. That's freaking sweet.
Mm-hmm.
Well done, Riffs. Well done. Way to put the pieces of the puzzle together. That's what I say.
You're having way too much fun with this, Gary. We need to calm down and take a break. We'll be right back after this commercial break. I'm just kidding. So we go on to the next part where it talks about an inner light and how the part of the Cyber Knights training has to do with unlocking their psychic potential. A lot of the Cyber Knights, well, let me rephrase that. I think all of the Cyber Knights have some psionic ability, whether it's minor or major. But I think they start out. Cyber Knights are also minor psionics, and they can only use a specific list of powers, and it goes through that in the abilities and bonuses. It starts talking about they start out with an arcane background psionics in place of the arcane background miracles, such as the Holy Warrior. They get to start with the Champion Edge, and they can take the Holy Warrior Edge. They just swap out the arcane background miracles with the arcane background psionics. Now, see, it's little things like that that makes Rifts and the Savage World system so flexible and so unique and so much faster to be able to just adapt. If you don't like one thing, unplug it and plug the other one right back in its place, and then just keep going. I don't think a lot of people don't realize how modular and how easy Savage Worlds allows you to do that. The fast part, it's just amazing to me when you start taking a look at the mechanics that way, how easy it is to put them together and take them apart and come up with something as crazy as this is.
Yeah, it's also one of the cool things that I like about creating monsters in this world. And
Yeah.
you can, you literally take like a puddle of whatever you want, and you can just bolt stuff on, give it entangle, give it this feature, give it that feature, and you have like, that's the neat part about it. You think of what you want, and then you just look through the book and say, okay, well, that's going to be part of it. And then when you're all said and done, you've got this monster. And one of my big pet peeves with D&D, the monster manual. All of my players show up with the monster manual all the time, and I'm like, what do you have that book for? You're a player. You don't need to know what the monster can do. You come into the Rifts world or whatever, and you can throw anything at them because you're basically creating all of your stuff yourself, which is one of the really key elements that brought me into the Savage Worlds universe. Back to the Cyber Knight, though, so not only does it unlock their training centers on unlocking not only psionic potential but also spiritual strength, and then it says these two qualities combine to give them a distinct advantage, especially against supernatural or supernaturally evil foes. That's very cool. And then, as noted, it talks about their Psi Sword, which is a blade of the knight's own personal configuration, and it's made from force of spirit and will. That is frickin' sweet. No wonder this thing does so much damage.
Yeah, exactly. So when you look at the stats for the Psychic Sword, it is your strength plus 2 times whatever your spirit is. So you take your strength die and you multiply your spirit die by 2, and you could be rolling 3d6 mega damage with an armor piercing of 6.
Where are we at here? I need to see this.
So the Psi Sword is right past the page. It's on the next page. We're jumping just a little bit ahead on the abilities and bonuses, but it's near the bottom of that list. It's on page 20 at the top, and it says Psi Sword. And by the way, you not only get, one of the most powerful hand-to-hand psi weapons in the game, it's a free action to draw it.
Yeah, because normally it's a -2 action to pull something out.
Nope, he can do it at the blink of an eye. He just thinks about it and poof, it shows up in his hand, and it's a glowing sword that can, appear different colors, semi-transparent, but, it can't look like brown or metallic or anything. It's just like an energy blade.
Yeah, so let's do the math here while we're looking at the Psi Sword. It does.
Yeah, so a Psi Sword does strength plus spirit times 2 damage, and it has an armor piercing of 6, and there's no strength minimum because there's nothing there. It's just energy. It's all psionic power. And by the way, if you guys are thinking, oh, I'm going to steal the Psi Sword from the Cyber Knight, doesn't happen. Only the Cyber Knight can use and wield that sword. So here's an example. You got a Cyber Knight. He's got a strength of D8 and a spirit of D10. Yikes. This means that he's going to roll a D8 and 2D10 to do melee damage.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so that's a potential of 28 points damage at armor piercing 6 with his Psi Sword.
Yeah, see,
and if the dice explode, it's going to be higher than that. Yeah, so you're talking boom gun damage.
In this particular instance, you have to apply bed mass.
Yeah.
So it's not strength plus spirit times 2. It's strength, and then add in spirit, and your spirit times 2 plus your strength, and you roll all of that, and that's how you get your damage.
Correct. Multiply your spirit times 2. So if your spirit is, like in this example, it's a D10. Well, now you roll 2D10, and then you add your strength die, whatever that is. It's a 1D8 in this example, and you will roll a 1D8 plus 2D10 melee damage and armor piercing 6. I mean, that goes through every single piece of armor and some of the major power armors with armor piercing 6.
Okay, so that is a list way too cool. And it says that you can split this into 2 freaking blades, one for each hand.
For all you munchkins out there, yes, you can take on the multi-action penalty to attack twice, but you can split your sword in half, and you can pull a black star out just like the 1980s cartoon, and you can have 2 of them and be swinging away. The only changes is your AP gets reduced to 2 for each blade versus an AP of 6.
Yeah, and then you have to use that's inner strength points.
That's correct.
Yeah, and for 2 inner strength points, you can make it inflict mega damage.
Because it's not good enough as it is, right?
Right.
What do you want? I mean, come on. You have this big old beefy dude, and he has this giant glowing light blue 2-handed claymore in his hands, and he just slices through a steel door to come charging at you.
Yeah,
tell me
toss
that
in.
look pretty.
Yeah, toss in, say like you're an Asian samurai or even like ninja cyber knight guy, and you come flying out of the bush, and there's a tank, rolling down. It's coalition or something like that. And you come flying out of the bush, bust out your double katanas, do some kind of crazy leap in the air, land on top of this thing, and just like slice it right in half.
And in the background, all the tank and stuff is just falling apart next to you, just pieces sliding off.
That is crazy. The size sword is absolutely friggin' insane.
It is Cyber Knight. Crazy was last episode. Catch up.
Yeah,
Harry.
Sorry. Wow.
Okay. No, but I mean, that's awesome that it has that ability, right? The Psy Sword is what a lot of people go after. A lot of people like the Cyber Armor. That's one of the other abilities. You not only get to summon the Psy Sword as a free action, you get to turn your armor on as a free action. You can summon that organic metal shell, which gives you +2 toughness as a free action. So you can do both of those things without even thinking about it and go right into combat, which is awesome. Another one of the things it talks about is cybernetic combat. Speaking of, that's the very next bullet point, and we're at page 19 if you're keeping up, kids. It's any attack when it comes to cyberkinetic combat, any technologically based attack. So a laser rifle, a railgun, vibroblades, a laser targeting sniper rifle, anything like that, an EMP gun or an EMP grenade, they all suffer -2 to hit the Cyber Knight. And this ability stacks with the deflection power that they get. So it not only makes you harder to shoot at, it makes you harder to kill.
Would that be because, like, I guess what your armor would sort of deflect any kind of lasers?
Yeah,
right?
so the
Railguns shoot bullets, right?
Built into your armor. Yeah, the nanites, they start creating power fields, and they start creating EMP fields around you, and it confuses or slows down or misdirects a lot of the attacks that are shot at you from anything that's like, energy or electronic, technologically based, anything that has what they call a quote technology-based attack.
Yeah, that's very cool. Burst into battle. Cyber Knights begin with a +2 pace and a D10 running. And
then what more do you want? You can keep up with the juicer.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a couple of them that just get like double pace, and all. It's so insane. It's so insane.
Well, I mean,
compared
for the
to
Cyber
regular.
Knight, right? It makes total sense, because the first thing that you're going to think of as a knight, as a crusader, as a paladin, is that, sword and board kind of fighter. You need to close ranks with the enemy, and you need to get right in there and attack them up close. Because the first thing that's going to take down a glitter boy, a sword through its throat. It works every time. The first thing that's going to really start to make that dragon think about whether or not it wants to be on the ground or not is a sword to its throat. The first thing that, you get this giant power armor or a big robot, and you have a Cyber Knight down at its ankles, cutting it down to size, literally. It's going to work every single time, but you got to be able to close that gap. And the D10 running die helps immensely, and you get +2 to your pace. And this is not including if you take the fleet-footed edge. All those bonuses stacks, you could be running with a D12.
Yeah, +2 pace and a D12 running if you take the fleet-footed edge.
Man,
that's
you could be faster
cool.
than the crazy, and that's saying something.
Yeah, I get I'm almost picturing like Tony Stark in his Iron Man suit as your cyber armor pops up and starts covering your body. You know how the little pieces of that suit just kind of like all click into place, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's exactly what it could look like.
The Cyber Knights begin with the Champion Edge, which I'm looking up as we were speaking. So the Champion Edge comes out of the core rule book, and it's basically if champions are holy or unholy men or women that choose to fight for a particular deity or religion. So you get this Champion Edge as well. What is it going to do? So if you're fighting the forces of darkness or good, depending, because this is the beauty of Savage Worlds, it's just a matter of flipping it or trapping it in a different way. You get a +2 damage when attacking evil or good creatures, depending on, and you get a +2 toughness when you're suffering damage from either evil or good, depending from the opposing force, I guess would be the best way to put it. And that includes arcane powers, weapons, claws, teeth, anything from the opposing force. So if you were evil, you get all of that protection from good, and if you're good, you get all that protection from evil from the Champion Edge, which is really neat.
Yeah, exactly. It helps a lot when you're fighting those, like when you have a necromancer or you have a shifter that's summoning demons in from hell or all the other dimensions of the world, and they're all considered unholy beasts. So since you're a holy champion, you get to all these none of those penalties apply to you, and you get a bunch of bonuses when you're being attacked by them. which makes you just super awesome because you're not awesome enough.
Yeah. Intense combat training. So you begin with a fighting in D8 and 2 combat edges. One of the beautiful parts, again, about Savage Worlds, seriously, I would marry this bloody system if I could. I just love it that much. You get 2 combat edges. Combat edges are, well, any edge that you take is basically a buff. You get some kind of feature or some kind of an ability is really what a combat edge is an ability. And when you're creating your character, you can forego the rank requirement. So you can take 2 combat edges, which would be things like, what do we got? We got Brawny off the top of my head. What else is a combat edge?
Two-fisted.
Try and find combat edges, and then I'm going to edit this so that it sounds like we know what we're talking about.
We do know what we're talking about. We just can't think that fast. It's called age. I'm almost 45. Right. I'm lucky if I remember put on my socks and underwear in the morning.
You can do things like block, take Brawler, which is going to give you a bonus to your bare-fisted punching. Bruiser, when you get a raise on your bare-handed fighting attack, you get to roll a higher die type, which is pretty cool. Combat reflexes, things like counterattack, dodge. Elan. Elan is a good one that I don't think most people will use, right?
I don't think people consider that a combat edge, but it really is because it makes you a lot faster. Makes your reaction speed super fast.
What it does is when you have Elan, you can spend a Benny on a trait roll, including soak rolls, and add +2 to the total. Extraction, first strike, like that. Florentine Frenzy. Frenzy's cool. Something happens and you basically go nuts. And there's so many different things that you can get.
We just talked about that with the crazy.
Yeah, there's a butt ton of combat edges, and you're going to be able to pick 2 of those and forego the rank, which is awesome.
I'm looking for the books with the characters in them, the pre-generated characters.
While you're checking that out, I'm going to go over the minor psionics. So Cyber Knights have an arcane background, which is the psionic seal. You only get 10 power points, spell points, inner strength points, 3 powers, and a psionics in D6, but you have access to, by the looks of it, not very many armor, barrier, and bolt.
Look in the next column at the top.
Next column at the top. So a Cyber Knight with Master Psionics. Ooh, that's freaking awesome. They can use mass healing, but not as a free action. Yeah, they get the
mega powers for or the mega versions of all of the regular powers. It goes on to say, barrier, bolt, boost, trait, confusion. There's probably at least a dozen or more powers that you get to go on to use. Speed is one of them. Lots of great stuff for them to be able to use. Oh, now wait, I'm looking through this rules, and it's speaking of Savage Worlds, here's one of those special unique ones. And Savage Worlds rule, guys, forgive me for this, but this is just too awesome to not give up. Powers marked with an asterisk under the minor psionics list for the Cyber Knight are usable only on the Cyber Knight, which is nothing out of the ordinary, but they activate as a free action, inflicting no multiple action penalty. Boost trait is one of those. Smite, speed, healing, and deflection. No multi-action penalties, and you get to activate them as a free action. Granted, not all in the same turn, but...
I really like this deal. Revered Protectors. All Cyber Knights enjoy. You get a +2 charisma when dealing with those who know and love them as guardians of life and freedom. That's really cool. So you stroll into a town, somebody knows that you're an actual Cyber Knight. They blow a little smoke up your butt, and you're like, yeah, that's right. I need some room and board. +2 charisma.
Unfortunately, that backfires on you when that same night, an evil dragon attacks, and they expect you to defend the town from it and not run on your robot horse away from it.
That's right. I was just going to say, and you flee.
Yeah, it happens, but that could be considered a minor infraction. So next time you try to pull that cyber sword out, it might not work very well. I've gotten away with doing that with a Cyber Knight before, where they like, oh, I don't want to fight them, or they're kind of tentative and they don't want to get involved and get into the fighting and get into the combat part of it. I mean, they like the role playing in the game, but the player just seems to be real tentative to do it. So I'm like, okay, you left that town, or you didn't defend this person, or that little girl, you hurt her feelings. Those are all minor infractions. Okay, well, I'm going to break out my cyber sword and you try try as hard as you can, but it doesn't come out. What? Oh crap. Oh, I got to do something else. And they don't know what to do. And they get flustered. And then the next turn, okay, now your cyber sword works. And then he stops, and at the end of the game or at the end of that round or encounter or whatever, they'll ask like, what happened? Oh, well, you remember that girl you didn't talk to, and you probably hurt her feelings or whatever. And that's what happens. And he's like, oh, you mean there are consequences? Because of course no one reads the rule book anymore. And there are consequences to me not doing my, following up on the code as a knight. And, as time goes by, sometimes they have to kill the bad guy, but he's not necessarily a bad guy. So now they know that they have to live by a code of chivalry. And if he's not really a bad guy, maybe he was possessed by a mind slug or something like that, they maybe have to let him go. And now that's where you got the player literally by the gonads. You can just tell him, hey, guess what? 3 games later, that guy comes back with his buddies, and they're all juicers. And now you got to get them go through that whole concept again. That's how you do it. That's how you play that game out. That's how you hold their characters accountable to that whole code of chivalry, because it's really important. A Cyber Knight is a really powerful character. In melee, short of a juicer or a combat cyborg, the Cyber Knight can take them on. And remember, they're just regular humans. They're not like super powered. I mean, yeah, they have a few psionics. They have their cybernetic armor and their cyber sword. Other than that, their code of ethics or their code of honor is about the only thing that differentiates them from the rest of the party.
Yeah, my buddy Dwayne, I used to play D&D with this kid, and this kid played a paladin. And the first bloody place we went into, he goes full murder hobo, and I'm like, I had to explain to him, I'm like, dude, you're a paladin. This is not what you do. You don't just start killing the innocents all over the place, right? Like, I know you have all these
full Conan instead of full paladin.
I know you have all these cool powers and stuff like that, but no, you're supposed to be like the good man, not the guy that's just slaying stuff left, right, and center. This is my favorite section of going over the different iconic frameworks. I love when we get into the complications part, because like anytime there's a good, there's always some bad that goes along with it.
Oh, yeah. There's always balance in Rifts. You can never get away from the good or the bad. Even the bad guys, they're like, even the NPCs and the monsters and all the wild cards that are thrown in, there's always some kind of hitch, some kind of weakness, some kind of special power, ability, thing they can or cannot do. Like, vampires are susceptible to water, that kind of stuff. It's all over the place. It was built into Rifts and it's built into Savage Worlds, and it really is well balanced. That's one of the key components that they really managed to transfer over into Savage Worlds. I think that's why Savage Worlds works so well for the Rifts IP. Okay, so we've been talking on and off about the Code of Honor throughout the Cyber Knights, and one of the things that the Cyber Knights have to adhere to is the philosophies of the Order, the Order of Cyber Knights. If you do not follow these philosophies and these codes, you lose some or all of your powers. And they narrow it down mechanically. It goes into minor transgression. You get minus if you commit a minor transgression. Like I said, you hurt a child's feelings, or you don't come to the aid of an old woman when she's crossing the street, or just little things as you go through your day, through your adventuring. You get a -1 penalty to all of your psychic rolls until you perform a noble or heroic deed to atone. So it's no longer just, well, I don't want to help them. Why? Because they're just a bunch of jerk gang members. But they're beating up on that kid. Well, that kid got it for himself. He's the one who threw the rock. And that's not the kind of thing that your friend probably wouldn't go over there and just say, screw it, let him hurt himself. But a real Cyber Knight following the Code of Honor, if he doesn't go do something about that situation, it's considered a minor transgression. And moving on to that, major transgressions give you a -2 penalty to all of your psionics rolls and all of your abilities under cybernetic combat and inner light. And that has to do with all of your champion edges and all of those technologically based attacks getting a penalty because of cyberkinetic combat. Well, guess what? You don't get that anymore. It all becomes penalties under that if you have a major transgression. And it goes on to talk a little bit more about what a major transgression is, something that's kind of personal, maybe like killing someone. Well, actually, no, a mortal transgression. Now, this is when a knight commits an action completely opposed to the code. If you commit a major transgression, all of your cybernetic knight abilities are lost. So you can no longer generate your armor whenever you want. It doesn't turn on. You can't create a cyber sword. You don't get the cyberkinetic combat bonuses. You're not able to use the champion edge as inner light, so you don't count as righteous and honor whenever you're fighting supernatural forces.
I like that your Psy sword turns into like a Psy butter knife. Like,
yeah, it becomes a spark on your finger, just like, all you can do is light a bic. That's about all you can get with it. Whenever you commit a transgression, minor, major, or mortal, is to fulfill a quest, take on a personal quest or some kind of noble or heroic deed to atone. Of course, the greater the transgression, the greater the deed. And it does say in parentheses, determined by your game master. So talk to your GM about that if you, by any chance, commit a mortal transgression. In the rulebook, in the original rulebook and in this one, it says, should the character commit another mortal transgression after, doing one already, before regaining back your Cyber Knight status, your spirit is corrupted. Your character regains use of his or her abilities, but becomes a fallen Cyber Knight under the GM's control.
Oh, sweet. This is where you're gonna put your GM, your game master skills to good use. Personally,
it's so much fun to be able to take control of the player characters when you're a GM and then be able to use them against them.
That's right.
Just the looks on their faces going, what the heck did we do? We created our own monster here. Look what you did. It's fun to watch it every single time it happens, because it does happen. Eventually, Rifts is one of those, various shades of gray kind of world. There is no black or white. There's death, corruption, there's murder, there's the whole nine of every kind of mortal sin going on there. And sometimes you get stuck in the middle and you can't get away from it. You can't do, and no matter how much you try or how much good you try to do, there's always something that a Cyber Knight gets stuck in the middle of it.
Nothing's funner than reaching over and grabbing your player's character sheet and saying, well, those nanites just took over your brain.
Yeah, you can feel it, starting to take over, and you lose control, and you wake up one day and you realize that you're no longer in control, and you haven't been for a few days now, and the black circles under your eyes, and the bloody fingertips, and the heavy breathing, and you can feel your heart just trying to literally jump right out of your chest. And then you look down and you can see, that kid that you saved last week is dead at your feet, that kind of stuff. That's the kind of storytelling that you can get away with in Rifts. It's really, really awesome. And you can go as lighthearted or as deep, as dark as you want with that one. But it's a lot of fun to be able to turn that character right back on the player characters, the very next game, or even save it and just say, oh, he's going to turn into an NPC. We'll bring him back later. And the look on the player's face are just like, oh my God, what did we do?
Yeah. I just take that, put it in my folder, and like, you know what I mean? 2 weeks later, you guys are strolling through town. No, that's fantastic.
You see this figure standing on the opposite end of town with a glowing large, claymore sword in his hands, and he appears very similar, and the armor he's wearing looks very shiny. He almost looks like a knight. And then everybody's like, that thought goes through their head like, oh my God, he brought him out. It's coming. Run.
Yeah, it's go time. An awesome moment. I like that they don't get cybernetics. This is the last bullet point in the complications. Because they have this organic nanotechnology, cybernetics are not an option. So does that mean, or I guess it does mean, that Cyber Knights would never have to worry about strain because they can't take any cybernetics?
Correct. They can't take any more cybernetics. The cybernetic armor doesn't allow them to take anything else. It is all 6 points of strain, quote unquote. They wouldn't be able to take any more, but it doesn't penalize them any. That's the uniqueness, the unique abilities that a Cyber Knight has with that armor. Why would you want to? I mean, come on. How many more bonuses can they get?
All of them. All of them is the answer to that question.
I've seen Cyber Knights take on Juicers. I've seen Cyber Knights take on Crazies. I've seen Cyber Knights take on Glitter Boys. I've seen them take on Power Armors. I've seen them take on just about every kind of iconic class, some of the larger robots, single-handedly go in and just stop them cold. Maybe not defeat them, but slow them down long enough for the other party members to help out and kind of do the whole the Wonder Twins powers activate kind of thing, where one guy does one power, the other guy does another one, and next thing you know, things are flying apart all across the table. That's one of the biggest abilities that Cyber Knights have, is they can go toe-to-toe with all the big guys. At the end of the day, they're just humans with a little bit of armor and a magic sword.
The Wonder Twins are cool. But the one guy really got the shaft, didn't he not? You got one of them can turn into like a monkey or an elephant, and what's the other guy get? Bucket of water. I'd be pissed off if I was that Wonder Twin. This is some bullshit. Why do I got to be the bucket of water all the time?
He was the one that was born second. That was the problem. He got all the leftover powers.
Yeah, you got all the junk ones. Cyber Knight starting gear. You get some serious Cyber Knight medium armor, a Wilkes 320 laser pistol, an NG-L5 laser rifle, NG-S2 survival pack, 1 silver cross. What is the silver cross for? Would that be your
vampires?
Is that what it is?
Yeah,
there's vampires
or any one of the unholy creatures, demons from hell, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it helps because you're a spiritual warrior. You're a paladin. You believe in something so strongly that, because of the champion edge and all the other edges that you get in bonuses. Yeah, it helps give a little bit of faith to that character. 6
wooden stakes and 2d6 100 credits.
You got to have some spending money. And the stakes, well, that's obvious. And we don't mean stakes with S-T-E-A-K. We mean stakes S-T-A-K-E-S. Again, vampires.
Yeah, wooden steaks would be not very tasty, no matter how you...
No. Little salt and pepper does not help those at all. Now, some of you might be a little confused. Gary said in the beginning, he said Cyber Knight medium armor. Yes, Cyber Knights can wear Cyber Knight armor over their cybernetic skin. That's
cool.
Not anything strange. Anybody who's played Palladium Rifts before will know that there's a couple of armors that they're capable of wearing, and the Cyber Knight medium armor tends to look like the traditional, plate mail armor that everyone's used to seeing in fantasy games. At least the breastplate and a couple of gauntlets. It kind of makes it look fashionable, but it's all with high-tech ceramic and plastisteel and a bunch of other types of materials made for him. So yeah, you can have armor on top of armor there, and it really increases his ability to be able to take damage. And that's what you need, because you get stomped on by a robot and you're done.
So I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that, or just make a guess, if you were to wear the Cyber Knight medium armor on top of what you already have, I'm assuming they don't stack. If I'm going to shoot you with a gun, I have to go through your medium armor first. I guess no, you would still go through your toughness, right? I'm just trying to figure out how this works.
Okay, so if I believe this is correct, Timothy, take a look at it and post it if I'm not, or at least confirm that I'm not crazy. I believe the Cyber Knight medium armor is not a mega damage armor. Your cyberkinetic armor, or excuse me, your cyber armor is a mega damage armor. So anything that'll shoot through that armor will go off of your cyber armor. So it just depends on which one is absorbing more. I'm not sure if they stack. I will have to ask.
Okay,
off the top of my head, I do not know.
This is the beauty of having both of us on here, and me with a PDF where I can just type it in and check it out. Medium armor, it says TW in brackets.
Techno Wizard.
Okay,
it's a Techno Wizard armor.
A much sturdier and more impressive suit, usually depicted as a set of composite bands and plates. This armor provides armor +6 and +1 embedded toughness. In addition to the usual enchantments, medium armor suit includes either the healing, or sucker power, recipient's choice, which can be used on self or others. And then it tells you that it's about it's 3 pounds / 14 pounds without power.
Yeah, so it's a Techno Wizard. They use magic, either power points or inner strength points to be able to power the armor. It's almost like a lightweight magical power armor kind of. Yeah, I think it'll stack because it gives you inherent toughness bonuses in addition to the cyber armor that you have. I think it'll stack. Again, it's a tank. You need to have that resilience, or you won't last very long.
Succor. I'm assuming it's Succor. Yeah, removes 1 fatigue level, 2 of the rays. It can also remove a character's shaken status. Really? What? It may be used to restore consciousness to those who have been incapacitated due to wounds as well. Wow.
So that's right, Gary. You have won your very own cybernetic medium armor. And what can it do? It'll take away 1 level of fatigue, and or it'll give you a free, that's right, you heard him, a free Benny, pretty much. It allows you to take off your shaken.
That is freaking cool. Medium armor suit includes you can either heal, or you can remove your shaken or your fatigue. Recipient's choice. That is so awesome.
Yeah, because it has the it's a Techno Wizard armor that has the Succor ability built into it, and you just spend a few. Do you spend a few ASP points? I'm assuming.
I don't know.
You should see the look on Gary's face, ladies and gentlemen. He's just like going back and forth, going, "Wow, oh my god, oh wow, oh my."
I want
his
this.
eyes and his mouth are dropping here. He can't believe it.
See, this is what I love about playing role-playing games. Getting, it just to find a suit of this thing somewhere in the deal, and then all of a sudden you've got the healing or the sucker power or something like that, which is just. It's what I love about it. There, Perisconte was talking about it. What is it that drives you to play, or what is your favorite parts about playing role-playing games? For me, MMORPGs like World of Warcraft. You start off at level 1, you're out twinking away on little dinky things like goblins and stuff, but eventually you start getting more powers and doing more stuff, and you become tougher. You get the extra money. You go buy some cool new magic items. I love that, and I love it in role-playing games because role-playing games give me the freedom to, express the story a little more, whereas I'm not being railroaded like but that is my thing when it comes to, playing role-playing games. Just becoming better and having more options to solve problems is my deal. And that's why that's so cool to me.
Everybody loves that. Everybody loves it when you're playing a game and all of a sudden you have 6 more different choices instead of the 5 choices you had before. And you're like, great, now how can I put these in combination and make it work? Yeah, I can totally feel you there. We always like to have more toys to play with whenever we're at the table. For me, I think, I've been playing role-playing games for a really long time, but for me, it's those moments at the table where all the players sit back and like, oh my God, like people's jaws are on the floor. Their eyes are like the size of saucers. Someone's gasping. If somebody's over there getting out the calculator going, okay, how can I beat this? Just that one moment where everybody's so into the game and you drop a bomb on them as a GM and they're like, oh my God. And it's like, it's one of those moments that you'll always remember. You may not remember the rest of the story for the rest of the years that you've been playing, but that one moment where everybody has that aha light bulb moment, that is an awesome feeling to have, because you know that only those people in that room that have gotten together that once a month, once every couple of weeks to be able to play this game together, you're the only ones that are a part of that inner circle that really know that story. And for me, that's a highlight, because that's how I remember my games, of all those special moments of all those people that put it together and created a story that was really well thought out and had a lot of energy and had a lot of fun. But it's just cool to watch it happen on the table. It happens like every week, so I absolutely love it. All right, so guys and gals, kids, all you guys following along at home, one of the things that I did want to mention about the Cyber Knight, in the Ultimate Guide for Rifts, it states the following, and I think it's really important and a key rule that did not make it into the Tommorow Legion's Player's Guide, unfortunately. It says, note, a true knight will never use a sword against a foe who is unarmed or not equipped with an equivalent weapon, or who is not a supernatural creature or dragon. I think it's really important that statement reflects what the code of honor for a Cyber Knight is. And I'll repeat it once just so everybody hears it again. A true knight will never use a sword against a foe who is unarmed or not equipped with an equivalent weapon, or who is not a supernatural creature or a dragon.
Yeah, so make sure you carry a couple extra swords around.
Laser rifle, machine gun, sure,
right?
Railgun. That kind of stuff works every single time.
You really want to kick the crap out of somebody, make sure you bring some extra weapons you pack in heat so you can take them out.
Yeah, good old 45 Magnum that does MDC rounds. There you go. There's
one section here, too, called To Survive and Thrive, the Cyber Knight. Little hints, little techniques, little gimmicks that were put in here so that you know how to play this character. It says starting out, focus on the powers your character can use as a free action. These are lifesavers and give her a serious advantage in combat. This is one of the things that I forgot to do because I was during my first game was activate my armor as a leyline wizard.
Mm-hmm. How much did that hurt?
Yeah, I think I told you I had a spatula hand. Right? It hurt.
It'll teach you, won't it?
That's right. You got to make sure you engage those freebies.
Well, it goes on to say big guns can't be used at melee range. Melee's where the Cyber Knight shines brightest. I spoke on that a little bit before. Get in quick, get in close, and really take out those ranged weapons by going into melee with him. You're a big old tank with armor and cybernetic armor underneath it, and you have one of the most powerful cybernetic melee weapons in the game, or excuse me, psychic melee weapons in the game. put it to good use. And then last but not least, it talks about the inherent reverence many have for the Cyber Knight. That means that your character is going to want to be the face. You know, he's going to want to be the good guy that's going to be leading all the investigations, all the social stuff, walking up and around, talking to the sheriff, talking to the, you know, all the authorities or whatever. A lot of the times, Cyber Knights are the neutral parties that are negotiating between the Federation of Magic and the Coalition, between, you know, a group of vampires in Mexico and some raiders in Arizona. Those are the ones that everyone, even the bad guys, have mutual respect for. You know, the Coalition has a hit list, and the Coalition will go after dragons without a second thought. Nuclear weapons will get fired at dragons. They hate them almost as much as one of the greatest, you know, enemies of man is what they call them. Anyone in a large robot or a large power armor is going to be, you know, target number 2 on the Coalition hit list. If they find a ley line wizard, you're right up there with dragons. Shoot first and ask questions after you've killed their kids, that kind of stuff. But when you talk about a Cyber Knight, they're the good guys. They consider them to be the negotiators, the helpers. And since almost all of the Cyber Knights are human, or at least the majority of them are, there are some DB Cyber Knights out there. Since most of them are human, the Coalition tends to think that they're the good guys, and they don't necessarily fire on them first. And they will have discussions with them. They will stop what they're doing and ask the Cyber Knight to support them or to, you know, help their friends because the dragon. And then they realize that the dragon is a friend with the Cyber Knight, and then it all goes south. But a lot of the times you can use those to your advantage if you're playing a Cyber Knight. So think about that a little bit more on your social interactions and what you can do. A lot of the times people will give the Cyber Knight the benefit of the doubt because he is held to a code of honor.
Yeah, that's very cool. He's like the Jon Stark when Cersei asked him if he would swear allegiance, and he's like, no, don't think so.
Yeah, exactly. That's a really good way to put it. Love Game of Thrones, by the way.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I like the dragon at the end there. When they pulled him out of that, I did not see that coming.
Oh, I saw it coming. Like as soon as he got into the fight as soon as he came over the mountain, it was firing his fire all over the place and killing the undead everywhere, up and down. I'm like, yep, he's going to spear him. And sure enough, the camera panned over and he pulled out that spear and he threw it. I'm like, yep, he's going to die. And I'm saying this literally out loud as everybody in the living room's watching the show. And I said, yep, he's going to, you know, the dragon's going to die. And then after a while, they're like, oh my God, what's going to happen? Oh, the dragon's going to come back. And yeah, a few minutes later, and, you know, some good writing and a few blah, 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 this and that, kill you, hate you, love you, thanks for getting me, you survive, yay. And then the dragon's eyes opened and we're like, oh my God, like what is going to happen next?
Well, note to self, don't ever watch movies with Victor.
Yeah, no, don't do it.
Fantastic. Okay, well, that's going to put a pin in the old Cyber Knight. Next week, or sometime next episode, I should say, is going to be the Glitter Boy. 2 tons of glittering metal. And you better brush up on this because I'm going to have quite a few questions about some of the the Nima, the SEMA. Where's the power armor thing that we got
the
going
Nima
on
archive?
there?
Yeah, the Nima
That's
archive
right.
called the Boomers. So yeah, we're going to be talking about the Glitter Boys. One of I love power armors. I'm a big mech head. I like putting that kind of stuff together. And if you guys don't know, on the Google Plus page, I created a document called the Nima Archive Boomers. And Boomers was the nickname for Glitter Boys. So I went in and converted all of the Glitter Boys on a quick little Excel spreadsheet and gave you all the leap distances, the jet assisted leap distances, the sizes, the weights, the tonnages, the page numbers of where they are all referenced on. I even threw in the Glitter Boy Killer because, you know, if I'm going to give you a bunch of Glitter Boys, I got to use something against you. I'm sure the GMs would love to have at least one thing to be able to use against all those Glitter Boys. So we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail, and hopefully I'll have all the weapons done for that too.
Coolness. Next time.
Oh, whoa, bloody hell. Oh man, I love this guy. Do we have to go yet? Yes? Oh, please. Of course we do. We've got work to do. Please can we stay just a little bit longer? Stop it, Jeffrey. Oh, right, come on back through the rift there. Fine. Anyhow.
Okay. That sweet sound of that rift opening means it's time to pack up and portal out. We cuddled last week, and we ended up in some weird place that I don't think we could talk about on the podcast, Victor. So maybe this time.
Show, Gary.
Maybe this time. Yeah. Fortunately, I didn't end up in your living room listening to you talk about frickin' Game of Thrones and spoiling it all.
Wait till next season.
Yeah, excellent. We just recorded Wild Die. We did this one setting or one sheet setting and stuff like that. There were some really cool things. Harrison has to edit all the podcasts, and he came out with the adventure called Kitchen Nightmares, which if you've ever seen the Kitchen Nightmares is Gordon Ramsay just basically swearing his face off. And the guy that has to edit the podcast is the guy that came out with the one that's going to be the most beeped. And I find that, just funny on such a level. So yeah, check us out or check me out on the Wild Die. I'm one of the many that's over there. It's actually really sweet. Tabletop Twats is Harrison's other podcast. Harrison edits a lot of the actual plays that we do, and if you've ever heard them, he takes out all of the dice rolling and all of the mundane behind the scenes stuff, and he just does this super creative story. And it's really good, and it's really well put together. The bonus episode for the Wild Die was called Daring Tales of the Space Lanes, which is actually pretty funny. Manuel Sam's running through the dangers of IFAS 4 with Harrison Hunt and Peter Beckett. Harrison is such a clown. He's so funny. They're doing some stuff in this one thing. I don't want to throw any spoilers out, but there's this one part where they're doing some stuff and some things happen, and Harrison's like, "But I love you," and Peter Beckett is just like, "What?" Yeah, it was pretty funny. It's really good. It's really entertaining. I think that might be on the Wild Dice Patreon. I didn't see it show up on my podcast feed where I was looking at it through my whatchamacallit. Also, don't forget to check out ZOVYA. Once again, I'm going to throw her out there. She, if you didn't listen to the full episode last time, has now 2 patrons. She has one for her fantasy maps, and she has one where she split off her sci-fi maps.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Can't wait for that. Other stuff going on. I just posted something up today. If you guys haven't taken a look at it yet, go take a look at From the Rifts section under the Savage Rifts Google Plus page. And there is a picture of 5 hands holding 5 different swords up in the air. And the swords are Thundar the Barbarian Sun Sword, He-Man's Master of the Universe Blade, Snake Eyes and his ninja toe, Lion-O, and the sword of the Thundarians, and then there's Link with the Link sword. And what I was thinking about doing is writing these characters up and posting them out for everybody using their Rifts games. So those of you guys who want to have a character class that's or you want to play this particular character, we'll put them out there for you guys to push them through the Rifts. And you never know, cartoons might be real. I thought that was a neat idea. We're getting a lot of good feedback from a lot of folks. It looks like they want to see them on there. So I'm going to do it, and away we go.
Victor, wait! There's actually a couple other things that I wanted to quickly mention. Have you seen that there's a new update for Tabletop Simulator where they have some kind of character sheets built in?
I did see the update for Tabletop Simulator. If you guys don't know, we're big fans. We're trying to get a game going in that in the very near future. But I haven't had a chance to mess with it yet. I've been a little busy with a few other things going on at home with the kids and just life in general. And it's on my to-do list. So hopefully we'll be able to get a game going with that. But what it does, it brings out a separate a separate border or a separate plate. And it has the actual different sections from all the different character sheets that you can go in and change the abilities and powers and type in your own stuff. Bonuses and penalties all show up on it. It's kind of cool. It's kind of like the automated character sheets for the other tabletop simulators, or the VGT, the virtual tabletops like Roll20 or just all the other ones that are out there for it. It's really cool. I think it'll really make the game a lot better than it already is.
Yeah, that's cool. I haven't had a chance to look at it. Somebody had mentioned it. I think Eric had mentioned that it had come out. And I asked a guy that I know that had built a character sheet inside it, the Jolly GM. And it turns out within a little bit of time, within a week, he had farted around with it enough where he actually had a really super cool looking Conan D20 character sheet. So I'm really stoked for this. Hopefully it'll pan out and be like ultra cool and we can get that built or something like that for Rifts.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I know it was a big deal. It was a lot of scripting, a lot of other stuff involved. It was a big update for the Tabletop Simulator, so I think it'll really change it and make it come up to really increase the possibilities that it already has.
Yeah, it's fantastic. All right, tune in next time. We will have another action-packed show. We'll be tackling the Glitter Boy from the Tommorow Legion Players Guide. Is there still, what are we at? We're on page 20. There's so much material in this universe. It is freaking crazy. I didn't even know there was vampires and other stuff. And I have other questions. Victor, we're running an hour and a half, and I still have so many things on my mind that I need to ask you about this stuff. But that's what we have other shows for. We'll keep pumping them out as long as you guys keep listening. Like, subscribe, share, link, click, tell your friends. Make your mom listen. We don't care about your mom. Just make her listen. Victor's shaking his head. All right. Peace out.
I'm not going there.
Let's jump through this portal and call her done. Good night, everybody.
Game on, Gary. Game on.
Adios. The Murder Hobo Show is not affiliated with or endorsed by any companies mentioned on this show. Any of the products mentioned on our show or appear on our website are the property and copyright of their respected owners. All items are used under fair use and for educational and review purposes. All other items are the intellectual property of the Murder Hobo Show, copyright 2017, all rights reserved.